Hello, Pokemon trainers. Welcome to Unite Academy. This is Pokemon Training 101, presented by Professor Deuce. This is for anyone who missed the class. I believe it was the 19th, or it was this Sunday. So hopefully once you watch this, you'll be ready for the 26th. Okay, so about the course. This is where you'll learn to become the very best like no one ever was. I'll train you all into Pokemon Masters. That sums up what this course will be about. We'll be learning how to play competitive Pokemon. What does that mean? It means we have to start from the beginning. We're set to zero and practice our fundamentals through consistent practice and determination. Learning what Pokemon types are, stats, moves, abilities, and the stakes of a battle. We'll take things very slowly though. It's not to rush and lose track of our goal, to have fun. This class is taught by me, by Rain, by you. Let me know what works for you all and topics you like to focus on. I'd also recommend that everyone try to join the classes because it's more interactive and more engaging, and you'll actually be able to learn much more when you can ask me questions during class and be able to participate in Pokemon battles. So about your professor. Professor Deuce. I've been in love with Pokemon since I was very young. With Mimi, I watched the Pokemon anime and also collected the Pokemon trading cards. It was and still is something very magical. I even made concepts for my own Pokemon and manga. Now more than ever though, I've taken the core mechanics and teaching seriously. Pokemon isn't simply a game where you can shut your brain off and win. It has fundamentals, strategy, and it requires a mass amount of flexibility. It also taught me about sacrifice. Depending on what you value, you can't always succeed with your favorites. It's about compromising with what you want and what you need to achieve results. It also taught me that not all games are winning ones. Nothing is guaranteed in Pokemon. So, let's go into some Pokemon history lesson in case you don't know a lot about the origin of Pokemon or what Pokemon is. So what is Pokemon? Pokemon is a Japanese media franchise created by Satoshi Tajiri, consisting of video games, animated series, and films, a trading card game, and other related media. The franchise takes place in a shared universe in which humans coexist with creatures known as Pokemon, a large variety of species endowed with special powers. The primary target audience for the franchise are children aged 5 to 12, but it is known to attract people of all ages. Pokemon is estimated to be the world's highest grossing media franchise and is one of the best-selling video game franchises. The original full name of the franchise is Pocket Monsters, which has been commonly abbreviated to Pokemon since its launch. When the franchise was released internationally, the short form of the title was used, with an acute accent over the E to aid in pronunciation. So it's actually pronounced Pokemon, but people say Pokemon, so it doesn't really matter too much. Pokemon refers to both the franchise itself and the creatures within its fictional universe. As a noun, it is identical in both the singular and plural, as is every individual species name. It is grammatically correct to say one Pokemon and many Pokemon, as well as one Pikachu and many Pikachu. I'd also like to say that in this class, we'll be learning how to play the video game rather than the trading card game. A lot of people get confused or think I'm referring to trading cards or Pokemon Go, but we're talking about the actual core battle system that was brought in before the trading cards and Pokemon Go. So we're going to talk about this more in the next slide. Pokemon creator Satoshi Tajiri. Tajiri was born on 28th of August 1965 and grew up in Machida, a suburb of Tokyo. As a child, he enjoyed discovering and catching insects and other small creatures in the various ponds and fields that surrounded his town. During Japan's economic miracle, many cities, including Machida, were significantly expanded. As a consequence, Machida's nature was largely destroyed in his second year of junior high. An arcade hall opened in Tajiri's neighborhood, introducing him to video games. His studies continued. While studying electrical engineering at Tokyo College of Technology, Tajiri began publishing a doujinshi magazine titled Game Freak. The title was inspired by the 1932 film Freaks, which Tajiri was fascinated with at the time. He self-published the first issue of the magazine in March 1983 at the age of 17. At the time, magazines specializing in video games did not yet exist in Japan, allowing Game Freak to fill a gap in the market. Sometime later, Tajiri was contacted by aspiring manga artist Ken Sugimori, who became Game Freak's illustrator. Game Freak folded in the late 1980s, by which point Tajiri had become a respected game journalist in Japan's fledgling video game industry. In 1986, Tajiri Sugimori and a few other enthusiasts started an informal development team called Game Freak, named after the magazine it grew out of. Over the next few years, they independently developed the puzzle game Quinty, working on it alongside school or their regular jobs. However, no one within the group knew how to make the game's music. After consulting all his contacts, Tajiri got in touch with Junichi Masuda, who became the group's composer. Quinty was finished in 1989 and published by Namco. Tajiri officially incorporated Game Freak Co. on the 26th of April in 1989. Eventually, he would connect with Nintendo during the release of the Game Boy. Finally, in February 27th of 1996, Pokémon Red and Green would release. 2 years later, in September 28th, 1989, or 1998, Pokemon Red and Blue will be released in North America, starting the history of Pokemon. So, Pokemon. Pokemon Red and Blue contain 151 Pokemon species, with new ones being added in subsequent games. As of January 2024, 1,025 Pokemon species have been introduced. Most Pokemon are based on real-life animals or mythical creatures from folklore. For example, Pikachu are a yellow, mouse-like species with tails shaped as lightning bolts, able to blast powerful electric jolts through the air. So, now that we understand that the game is on the Game Boy, if you've heard of that, and it's on Nintendo system, the point of a Pokemon game. The player character takes the role of a Pokemon trainer. The trainer has 3 primary goals: travel and explore the Pokemon world, discover and catch a specimen of each Pokemon species in order to complete their Pokédex, train a team of Pokemon, and have them engage in battles. So for us, that's going to be the most important, training a team of Pokemon and have them engage in battles. Most Pokemon can be caught with spherical devices known as Pokeballs. Once the opposing Pokemon is sufficiently weakened, the trainer throws a Pokeball against the Pokemon, which is then transformed into a form of energy and transported into the device. If the catch is successful, the Pokemon is tamed and under the trainer's command from then on. If the Pokeball is thrown again, the Pokemon rematerializes into its original state. The trainer's Pokemon can engage in battles against opposing Pokemon, including those in the wild or owned by other trainers. Because the franchise is aimed at children, these battles are never presented as overtly violent and contain no blood or gore. Pokemon never die in battle, they faint upon being defeated, and can be rejuvenated at a Pokemon Center. So battling. When a Pokemon wins a battle, it gains experience points. After gaining a certain amount of them, the Pokemon levels up and its statistics rise. As its level increases, the Pokemon learns new offensive and defensive moves to use in battle. Furthermore, many species can undergo a form of spontaneous metamorphosis called Pokemon evolution and transfer into stronger forms. Most Pokemon will evolve at a certain level, while others evolve through different means, such as exposure to a certain item or training with another trainer. So, right here, these Pokemon are an example of Pokemon evolution. So the first Pokemon is Charmander, then it evolves into Charmeleon, and then it evolves into Charizard. So all of them have a different aspect or look to them to show the change. So once they fully evolved, Charizard is a full evolution. It's basically at its peak potential, and it's at its strongest. And this is also a depiction of a Pokemon fainting. They usually have swirly eyes in the games, or in the anime rather. And this is will show you that it's unable to battle any longer once it's gotten to 0 HP. So, what is competitive Pokemon exactly? Pokemon is a turn-based competitive game. It has random elements a combination of chess and poker, and it's traditional strategy, probability, and information management. So there's a lot of components that go into it. You have to know and predict. And it's also a simultaneous move game where both players decide their move on the same turn. So rather than chess where white goes first and black goes second, it's as if white and black decided their move on the same turn. So they moved in tandem. Or if you've played the game Battleship, where you don't see the opponent's move until they're called out. It's essentially like that. And it's also an immeasurable combination of Pokemon moves, stats, and abilities. And this is also how it's different than chess, because in chess, you're limited to how many pieces you have, and also your opponent also has the same pieces. But in this, you could go against someone who's not using any of your Pokemon as well. So it's also a cooler way because it's also more individualized. It's showing how you want to play the game rather than a fixed state of play. So how the game goes. Every Pokemon has these things: moves, stats, ability, and type. We'll go into all of these through the course of the class overall. So what we're first going to talk about is Pokemon types. So this is the type chart on the left here. Type chart has 18 total types, each with unique relationships. And each Pokemon has 1 to 2 types, and each move has 1 type. So on the left of the type chart is the Pokemon move type, and on the top is the Pokemon's type that's being attacked. So using a super effective move applies a 2 times damage modifier. Using a not very effective move applies a 0.5 or half damage modifier. So on this board, we'll see that there is a 2, meaning that water moves do twice as much damage to anything in this line. So fire type, the water type moves do twice as much damage to fire types, twice as much damage to ground types, twice as much damage to rock types. And then they also do half damage to water types, grass types, and dragon types. So, yep, connect the left side, or the type from the left, to the type of the right to find the damage modifier, and blank if there's no 2, half, or 0. It's neutral, meaning it's a normal amount of damage, and 0 means immune. So, let's go through the types. Normal, fire, water, electric, grass, ice, fighting, poison, ground, flying, psychic, bug, rock, ghost, dragon, dark, steel, and fairy. And over here, it's much easier to see the actual names on the left side. So, this is also linked in Google Classroom resources in case you need to, because you will definitely need to use this for the assignment that's in Google Classroom. Well, actually, I'll talk about it later, but it's definitely necessary to do because it'll teach you. So yes, just like I was saying, to looking at the normal type weaknesses, you go all the way down. Any 2s you see means there's a weakness. So it's weak to fighting type. It's also immune to ghost type. So just like fire, 2 times weak to water, 2 times weak to ground, 2 times weak to rock. Resistant to fire, resistant to grass, ice, bug, steel, and fairy. So this is a fire type Pokemon. Fire types are typically characterized by their aggressive nature or brutish designs, as fire can be seen as dangerous and relentless. They can also be seen as uncontrollable and mystical due to fire being natural in the course of life, creating something new, like the phoenix here. So, what are they weak to? We can look at this, go down 2, 2, and 2. They're weak to rock, water, and ground. These, I guess, make sense if you're thinking about it from the real life sense. Of course, it makes sense that it's weak to water, but why rock and ground? Water puts out fire, but rock, they can be used in a fire pit. Like rocks are put around a fire to control and contain it, which meaning it's basically useful against fire types in this sense in Pokemon. And ground types, you can throw dirt or sand or stomp out a fire to put it out. So this is why these are the types fire types weak against. And for the other types, we'll go through them as well. They also have perfect reasons for them to be weak to the types or resistant to the types they are. So this is also a circle, or rather a triangle, a weakness triangle. Okay, so this is the fire, water, grass triangle, which is the easiest way or best representation of how types can interact. So all these types are resistant to one as well as super effective and weak against one. So if we start here at grass, Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is super effective against the water type. The grass type is super effective against the water type. Water type is super effective against the fire type, and fire type is super effective against the grass type. And if we go the other way, fire type also resists the grass type resists the water type, and water type resists the fire type. So they work in tandem and they balance each other out. So this is the perfect type triangle or type trio where they all resist the other and super effective against the other. So, like those trio, every generation there's a new fire, water, grass trio known as starter Pokemon, and each trainer is given one upon starting their journey. So there's so far 9 fire starters, 9 grass starters, and 9 water starters. And they all keep each other in check, essentially. Which means in the game, your rival is likely going to pick the one super strong against yours. So if you pick Charmander, your rival would pick Squirtle to show you how you have to plan ahead and have to understand type matchups, because Squirtle is strong against Charmander and Charmander is weak against Squirtle, so it makes you think. And so, using a move that is the same type as the user applies a 1.5 damage bonus called stab or same type attack bonus. Think of it as affinity. Pikachu has an affinity for electric type moves, making its attack more powerful because it's an electric type. If Pikachu used a 50 base power electric type move, it would deal the damage of a 75 base power move, because 50 times 1.5 is 75. So, if both moves from Groudon and Pikachu are their same type and also 50 base power, how much damage does each Pokemon take? Pull out your type charts and calcs. So, if both moves have a base power of 50, Groudon would do an effective number of 150 damage, because 50 base power times 1.5 is 75, and then multiplied by 2 is 150. So it'd be essentially the same as a 150 base power move. And Pikachu, 50 base power move, 1.5 times for stab, which is 75, but electric type moves don't do anything against ground types. So it would be multiplied by 0. So it does 0 damage, which shows you that it's not always the best to use this certain type of Pokemon against this type of Pokemon. So that's why you have to understand type matchups and what's the best Pokemon to send out. So this is the assignment. These are the 2 assignments. It goes through what types are normal type Pokemon weak to. Look for 2s. So over here we already looked for the 2s. Fighting type. You type it down in the answer. And then what types are normal types resistant / immune to? So look for halves or zeros. So we look over here, no halves, but we see a 0. So we type down ghost. And it also does a few thought experiments as well in the next section. So these are the only assignments that you need to do. The weakness one you have to do before class on Sunday, the 26th. But for the resistance, I gave it an extra week. So these are the only assignments that are need to be done They're not too hard. They're pretty simple. I want them to be simple because we're only learning the basics. So for each type, the 18 types, you have to do one. And it gives you a type chart right in front of you, so you can just look down and give the exact numbers or exact types. Okay. Thank you for watching. If you watch the entire thing, it's 20 minutes, but I think it can go pretty fast. And this is all you need to learn for this week. So if you missed it, you're able to catch up. All right, thank you for listening. Have a good day. Professor Deuce out.